a small mantra. We continue with our questions in search of who am I? I just got to understand that this is something that is occupying the minds of all the people, particularly those who are just getting to understand their place in society. The two questions that they are seen to be encountering and coming to terms with are who am I and what's my purpose in life. So today's episode, if you can call it that, would be going further into who am I and also to find out the purpose in life and touching on it briefly through energy. Energy meaning coming down to the body consciousness and the you as aham spurana. Later on I'll explain the word spurana, but now let's get down to the questions. The one question that was asked via the Google store is, when I came here as I am an atheist, denying God, I was very happy. But now after asking myself the question, who am I? I'm thoroughly confused. I feel I've deteriorated. Therefore, very unhappy. This question was put to Sri Ramana. So Sri Ramana smiled at him and said, your confusion is not a state of deterioration. All these days you've been indifferent to the truth behind your own silence and your existence. Now you have raised the fundamental question. Therefore you moved away from indifference. So it's only an improvement from indifference to confusion, from confusion to clarity, and from intellectual clarity to experience to abidance in the self. This is the order of ascending in what is spiritual sadhana. Now we go further from this question to understand what does Bhagwan Ramana or Maharishi understand by self-inquiry or Atma-vichara. Is it not funny that I should be searching for the I? Does not the inquiry, who am I, turn out in the end an empty formula? Or am I to put the question to myself endlessly, repeating it like some mantra? Maharishi says, self-inquiry is certainly not an empty formula. It's more than repetition of any mantra. If the inquiry, who am I, were a mere questioning or a mental questioning, it would not be of much value. The very purpose of self-inquiry is to focus the mind, the entire mind at its source. It's not therefore a case of one I searching for another I. Much less is self-inquiry an empty formula, for it involves an intense activity of the entire mind to keep it steadily poised in pure self-awareness. Self-inquiry is the one infallible means, the only direct one, to realize the unconditioned, absolute being that you really are. So the devotee says, why should self-inquiry alone be considered the direct means to jnana? Maharishi says, because every kind of sadhana except that of Atma-vichara presupposes the retention of the mind as the instrument for carrying on with the sadhana. And without the mind, it cannot be practiced. The egomatic, different and subtler forms of the different stages of one's practice, but is itself never destroyed. When Janaka exclaimed, "Now I discover the thief who has been ruining me all along, he shall be dealt with," summarily, the king was really referring to the ego or the mind. "But the thief may well be apprehended by the other sadhana as well," said the devotee. So Maharshi says, the attempt to destroy the ego or the mind through sadhanas other than Atma Vichara is just like the thief assuming the guise of a policeman to catch the thief. That is himself. And Atma Vichara alone can reveal the truth that neither the ego nor the mind really exists, and enables one to realize the pure, undifferentiated being of the self or the absolute. Having realized the self, nothing remains to be known because it's pure and perfect bliss. It is the all. So the devotee says, in this life beset with limitations, can I ever realize the bliss of the self? So Maharishi says, the bliss of the self is always with you, and you will find it for yourself if you seek it earnestly. Now, is there anything in this Akash that you would like me to further with? Any
question? Not really. Like, this is a very general kind of concept. So I thought about it a lot, talked about it a lot. And yes, it is always confusing to seek oneself, and when everybody says that it's always with you. So so no question in particular as of now.
Okay, so we can go further then into the actual energy part of the thing as to how do you do it when if you have to come down to the individuation or to the what you say when you say I, right? And much to everybody's dismay, when you start looking into yourself, there's nothing visible, nothing at all. Right? If you were to feel something, yes, but 99.933% of the people cannot visualize anything when they close their eyes and look within themselves.
But
there are very few people who can actually visualize and seeing colors, or getting flashes, and getting vivid images. These are very, very few people because clairvoyance is one which lends itself as a talent, and not many of us are graced with this talent. I speak only from my own experience because I'm talented and I have the clairvoyance. And as Akash and I were just talking a while ago, we realized that there are some things you cannot talk about to another, And he was asked to share about his, talents. And there's certain talents that he has which he was unable to teach to anyone. And similarly, I could only tell them so far and no further that if you want to be with your clairvoyance, you could actually start with Om recitation, right? And every time you do the Om recitation, as I did with Mr. Pillai, even realizing fully well that I was clairvoyant at that time, I didn't have to get clairvoyance. But I'm a Shiva Bhakt, and therefore it was easy for me to do Om Namah Shivaya. And I did not say the Panchakshara mantra in the full. I just did Om. Just basically only the one syllable Om. And it was unbelievable that at the end of it, I must have done over 1 million or more. And I lost count actually because I was so engrossed in it that the whole of the Shiva consciousness was right around me. I could feel it. And being clairvoyant, I could see wherever I saw any kind of an aura, I could actually see images of Shiva. And that is the linga. And by that time, I had actually read a book which talked about the linga code. And this was the Immortal Talks by Shunya, book 2. And in that book, Hanuman actually talks to a tribe and they meet at a peak, a mountain peak in Sri Lanka, and every 40 years. So, this particular group discussed the Linga code, and that has been given in book 2. And the narration is by Shunya, who calls himself Shunya, but he is a Canadian who had an experience. And Hanuman appeared to him. When Hanuman appeared, obviously the connection was made instantly, and he happened to not only come to Sri Lanka, but happened to be participating in the tribal meets, which he has actually put through in a book. So that's the little history about the book. But why I'm talking about the Linga code here particularly is when you are a lingam within you. If you are a lingam, you have already, the Shiva connection is direct. There is absolutely no way that you can get away from this. And in terms of energy, what we realize is that one half of us is the Shiva, the other half is Shakti. Pingala and Pingala, or the equivalent of
Yin and Yang in Chinese.
Yeah, Yin and Yang and Ida and Pingala. So now we have the Ida and the Pingala as the two co-axillary nervous systems, and we have the central nervous system, which is the Sukshma Nadi. So these you can find if you're doing yoga and everything else. You are already familiar with these terms. Now, when you have Shiva and Shakti already within you, it becomes incumbent for you to know where you are when you get in. Right? That I'm talking about going within you. Now, forget about the chakras for the time being, because when you are already here, you get directed as a current, as an electrical current. Because when you do follow and do your anapana, that is the inhalation and the exhalation, you're already with the potent energy to carry on with your investigation, your Atma Vichara. Now, with this Atma Vichara that you are already ongoing with, you actually focus and totally pay your attention at the tip of your nose. Right? I had pointed out this earlier in the episodes. So when you get in the tip of the nose, where exactly are you? You are actually at the pineal gland and at the cortex. These are organs in your brain, and the brain is actually directly connected through the vagus nerve to the kundalini. Yes, it is actually the top of the head and it is at the base of the trunk. Right? Now, strangely but correctly, it goes to the bottom of your feet, the soles of your feet, which actually go down 10 feet and more under the ground. So you're completely a circuit now, going beyond your energy, healing energies, which go into 7 layers around you, 3 plus 4. Now, out of this, the first 3 are very basically we are in the first 3 layers surrounding our healing energies, which are felt at their fundamental level, elementary level. Let's put it this way, the elementary level. They are very physical and they are felt by the body consciousness. This body consciousness that I'm talking about is that anything that happens in those 3 particular layers are felt by the body as sensations. So, that's why I'm saying they're very elementary levels, because the layers, because you feel the senses in the body. Sense of touch, feelings, everything comes within that. Now, when you go to the higher, the other four, which is outline, those four are all connected with the mind's reading into these things. Now, when we do Atma Vichara, the one thing that we talk about is the ego and the mind. What is the ego? The ego is nothing but the mind, which is actively projecting the complete images of you as a soul, which it has absolutely no right to do. It has no fundamental rights or any kind of a direction from the God steady. So it's not a divine thing to do for an ego. So the ego has to be annihilated. Now, that we'll do later, because in the process of Atma Vichara, one of the main things which will get annihilated is the ego. It happens naturally and spontaneously if your Atma Vichara is exceedingly one-pointed and it is full of intent and sincerity and honesty. Those particular four things are exceedingly important if you want to lead with Atma Vichara. So this is not a game. This is definitely not a pastime, but it has to be gone in with a lot of serious awareness, and this is very preliminary to our understanding the purpose of life. Now we come down to the purpose of life, which is exceedingly important. One of the things that is completely and totally very explicit when we do any of these skills and techniques to understand who we are, and when we put our foot forward and we come to say Vipassana, or we come down to programs like finding out what's that program?
What is that? Isha one and Kriya Yoga.
Kriya Yoga.
Yes.
And see, when we do Kriya Yoga and finding out more about the Kundalini and various things that go with it, these are not, again, they might seem very, very elementary, but they're not at all elementary. They're in fact exceedingly deep and carry a lot of ascendancy, which is, again, some people take generations to come down to being with understanding of the Kriya Yoga. And it's an arts tradition, and it has been close to the Kashmiri Shaivism, which places a tremendous importance on the one from the many, and also gives a very tremendous importance to embracing everybody and anybody, that means all of creation, as one. I'm not just reiterating, but I'm going down to the understanding that it is the female, and it's Parvati who assumes a lot of importance in Shaivism as practiced by the Kashmiris. So Kashmiri Shaivism is very, very directional in that particular regard. And this brings me to the very great importance that is now felt and understood, that it is Tripura Sundari in all her might and Shakti who makes Shiva who he really is, and for the world to understand him. Because without Shakti, Shiva was one who really all he wanted was to be in perpetual purpose. So, the stories of the tales go to tell us that he delegated much of his, much of this to Kartikeya and said, you take care of everything and I'll go do others, which he did. So therefore, you can refer to the books or the ancient books to find out more about this. But in essence, Atma Vichara just continuously will tell us that we have to get to the depth of where we are and who we are. Now, when we go down and understand at the tip of the nose, all this will open up proportionately. That means the more intense you search, the more will be revealed, because nothing is being hidden from us. In fact, if there is any hindrance, it is from the non-self. So, right at the outset, we have to understand that it is not a repetition of the question of who am I, or getting over the individuation I. And yes, that we have to annihilate the non-self. But the non-self is nothing. In itself, it has no basis at all, because it's a ghost. It's the body, the functions, and practically all of life is nothing but adding to the corpse. When you go to the Samshan Ghat or you go to the cremation ground, you're burning the body, aren't you? Or you're burying it. In either case, it has no life. It has no life. It's a cessation of life, after which it comes down to the burial ground or the cemetery. So each one of us, if we are away from the existence or the understanding of who we are, or from the purpose of life, we are nothing but a corpse. We actually have no idea as to what's going on, and we're totally confused. And it's because of the fact that you're not aware, you're not open to the idea that you are actually God in His manifestation as a fractal. So we are all fractals in His kingdom is a complete and total, you can call it a kind of an axiom, which you have to understand in its entirety. Now, I'm not saying this to dictate to anybody as to what you should do, but on the contrary, these are very, very fundamental truths. And if the fundamental truth is accepted and understood, your whole life will change, because you will understand why, therefore, whence, and how, and all the other questions that come with it. So, there will be no confusion. The moment you step into this particular thing, the first rung of the ladder, everything will be clear. Everything will be clear, and you will be like a ray of golden, pure, incandescent light, which has no fluctuations. It's absolutely pure, beautiful light. And this happens. And there are lots of people who have gone through this, but you make it harder for yourself. There are no set principles or statements or steps that any guru can go to this session. These are some things you can know for yourself, because you know how much sincerity, how much of loyalty, how much of piety, how much of love that you have. What is love? Love is nothing but a summation of the feelings for a single object or a single person who manifests all these qualities. Brings in compassion, kindness, comforting, caressing, embraces at the time when it is necessary. Not that they're doing this all the time, they're bringing it in exactly the time when it is necessary. So, these are feelings, some of the feelings you will find as soon as you go in to investigate. It'll all come crashing in, sometimes all at once, or sometimes in gradations. It depends on how intense your search is and how intense your investigation is. Now, having gone this far, now we can further say that what is that comes up? What kind of energy comes up? That again depends on your intensity. But further, I'll add that your solar plexus is the one that controls your emotions and your feelings. Now, all of us know that we are full of emotions. We are either angry, or we are jealous, or we are kind, we're sympathetic. So it waxes and wanes between two poles, the polarities of likes and dislikes, or antipodes. And understand about antipodes. So therefore, these are just showing you two sides of the same coin. And one is negative. Now, let me just clarify one thing here, that there is nothing called negative energy. Energy is positive all the time, is every time, any time, it is only positive. The negative elements come because of the interference in its continuity. The interference, let's take an example. Now, if you have a wire and the wire is connecting to the mains from where the electricity is being sourced. Now, if you have any kind of a obstruction in the form of should we say there's something to be fixed in a wire, and the wires have not been correctly put together, right? It might be the cathode and the anode are not correct or something like that. So when this happens, there's going to be a resistance, and the resistance is nothing but an obstruction. So that will actually keep the flow from being continuous. Similar thing happens inside, because our whole inside energy is an electromagnetic induction, continuous. In the first episode, if you remember, we actually spoke about light, and we spoke that we are the source of light. Now, this incandescence comes because we are a continuous, spontaneous flow of effulgent energy. And it's absolutely continuous. There is absolutely no stopping it at any time. Apart from which, it would be absolutely stupid on anyone's part and very, very impertinent to question the source of such a incandescent, effulgent, indifferentiated matter. Indifferentiated entity. So consciousness is actually something that has escaped definition, and you can feel it. You can actually feel it, because when you do intense sadhana, then we do have a tremendous rush where right from the base of our spine, it goes right up, and you have a flash of energy, blazing light, literally like a brilliant effulgence. And this effulgence and the brilliant light tell you that you're more than what you think you are. And when you feel that, and it literally wakes you up, and that is the beginning of your awakening. And you continue with this because you now understand that you are here for a purpose. And that's the first step in understanding that this purposefulness has to be meted out. That is METED. Now this meted out literally means that you come to terms with it and fashion everything that you do accordingly. So now the time has come for us to understand it and come to grips with it. And as luck might have it, or as the devas and the devis, as they ordain, they're giving us time, but not the kind of time that you and I look at a clock or a year or something like that. But if you do not come to grips with this in the next 6 months to 6 years, starting 6 months to 6 years, you're going to have to grapple with maybe live the whole life that you lived so far, plus, which means through generations of lives and rebirths, you'll have to do it all over again. So, the enormity of this is something that just shakes you up and says, oh God, they really mean it. That's because whenever there is any kind of a divination or any kind of a dream, some people have dreams, vivid dreams, some people have flashes, some people have messages coming from unknown sources who suddenly tell you, by way of advice, very well-meaning, very benevolent advice. They say, please, you've got to do this. This is something that's very important for you. And that person has nothing to do with you. You have never met the person in your life. But the first time you meet that person, he comes out with this kind of a thing saying you have to do this. So you perk up and you say, okay, I just wonder, how did I get that message to that particular person? And why now? So these things, have their own work, schedule. So they wake you up and you look further and you understand that messages of this kind come at a time and a place and in a direction following the eternal law. So one thing that comes to my mind very pertinently is that why do I mention this particular thing at this point of time, is to tell us that we are not alone in our existence. We are not alone. It's not to say that here I'm talking about the population. No, I'm not talking about the population. I'm talking about similar beings of existence in other galaxies. And these people are now going to be showing up in the next 6 months. They are already familiar with robotic and use of robotic in surgeries, robotics in industries, and robotics in factories, things like that. So they are not robots. They are actually humanoids. They're humanoids. They talk. They are highly intelligent people and very, very technologically very, very, very savvy, very savvy. So these people are not only going to come, but are going to actually meet you like the way you and I are now talking to each other. So this is a reality which we have to be aware of. And so actually we are now going to be shifting our consciousness. This is going to not only awaken. Many of us are already awakened and awakened to a degree of where we can actually avail of it interplanetary and maybe intergalactically. So when we actually realize this, we can actually telepathically and telekinetically exchange much information without batting an eyelid. You just have to sit and think about it and you're already in touch. Okay? So, last but not the least, it's a very interesting thing actually, is I think Douglas Cannon, she talked about it, and Edgar Casey also talked about it. And these are when, as we are, as I am now talking to you, there's 12 different me's talking about similar things in 12 different dimensions. Now this happens because we are in a series of 12 different dimensions which are alive, existence, and functioning the same way we're functioning on the Mother Earth. This is a reality. And this again will be realized by you because at times it comes like deja vu. And deja vu literally means that you feel, my God, I've done this before and I'm doing, I've not only done it once, I've done it many times. That kind of feeling comes. Or you see somebody and you say, I've met this person before me. They talk about this particular thing and they're talking about it in a similar way, but not about the same words, maybe. This feeling comes to us very often, doesn't it? So all these things will start to will become very clear. Okay? So Atma Vicharan literally opens up and you expand your consciousness. You expand your consciousness, you become more aware and to understand, and on a very, very elementary, very sort of third dimension level. Third dimension is literally when you eat, sleep, drink, produce, procreate, and get back to the same cycle. Now, so beyond that, your awakening does not proceed. So when you get to that level, also these things again, because when you reach the level of ascendancy, you can actually come back to this level of being down to the roots. But when you're in the roots, you can't go to that particular state unless you actually become aware. So, but once you reach that awareness of the ascendancy, you can always come